yeah, magic bullets sound a lot cooler.
YuGiBOOM!
So, with this Magical Musketeer deck, obviously it's been a while since we got Max in, but now that we have Max in the TCG, thought I went ahead and make Magical Muskets, and they're like another kind of anti-meta deck. Obviously, you can either make it pure, or you can splash Magical Muskets in other decks, kind of like the Golden Lord version I've seen. But this is a pure Magical Musket deck. It's not as expensive, especially now that the Starfire and the Caspar got reprinted in Dual Overload. But the only thing that can be expensive are like the hand traps, Phantasme and Impermanence, and depending on what you want to play, obviously in the deck, what you want to put into it. But honestly, it's not expensive. It's just depending what you want to put in it. So there's obviously some cards in here that you don't have to play, but you can substitute other cards instead. We can go over that once we go over the deck profile. But let's go ahead and dive right into it. So for the Magical Musket monsters, you gotta play 3 Caspar. All the Magical Musketeer have effects that if you can play Magical Musket spell and traps from your hand, so that way you don't have to set them and wait to use them and things like that. But they all have effects as well. If you activate a spell or trap in the column, you get certain effects. So with Caspar, if you activate a spell and trap in its column, you get to add a Magical Musket card from your deck to your hand. So that's his effect. The fact that they're fiends kind of sucks because there's probably not a lot of fiends you can go into, and the fact that they're light too kind of throws it off. And they're all different levels. They're not all level 4s, they're not all level 3s. Some are 3, some are 4, so it just depends. So that way in the extra deck you can use some Exceeds, but we don't use too many in this extra deck. Like I said, this is more of a anti-meta version. For the next Magical Musketeer monster, we play Triple Starfire. Since she has the same effect that if you activate, you can activate Magical Musket spell and traps from your hand, and then her second effect is if you activate spell and trap in this card's column, you get to summon a Magical Musketeer monster from the deck in defense. So let's say you play a Cosmic Cyclone, or it could be the good thing about this is that it can be any spell and trap, so it doesn't have to just stick with the Magical Musket spell and traps you have to activate in order to get their effects off. It's just whatever spell and trap. And even if your opponent uses one in the same column, obviously they're going to try to get around that. But yeah, so you get their effects off even if it's you or your opponent. For the next 3 I played Triple Kid Brave. I've seen a couple profiles that play either 2 or just 1. I like sometimes play. I think 3 is good because sometimes if let's say you don't want, because we do run Pot of Desires in the deck, if you don't want Pot of Desires to get rid of some of your cards, because sometimes that can be kind of detrimental when you play Pot of Desires, and sometimes you get rid of certain cards. But Kid Brave is good because if you activate Spell and Trap, you discard Magical Musket card, draw 2. So sometimes if you just want to just get rid of 1 from your hand to draw 2, you can use Kid Brave effect instead. Especially if, like I said, you don't want to use Pot of Desires. Because sometimes Pot of Desires, it is that card that is like, oof, once you banish those 10, you can't get them back. But sometimes it does help as well. But Kid Brave is just another another way to draw cards in the deck. For the next Magical Musketeer monster, we play 2 Doc. I play 2 only because sometimes there are, let's say if we do use a lot of Kid Braves or things like that, or we do cycle a lot sometimes through our spells and traps or even our monsters. Doc's just there just so you can get them back, because once they're in the grave, there's not really a way to get them back, obviously with special effects like Doc or some other cards. So that's why I just run the 2, just because like I said, you do sometimes cycle through a lot of them, and if you do use that Pot of Desires, if you get rid of a couple of them, the top 10, whatever that is, you don't get them back. So that's why we play the double Doc, just in case whatever we have used, you can at least try to get those back. And now for the 1-ups, I play 1 Calamity. We just play her just because she can get back a monster. And then we play 1 Wild because it's kind of like a little Pot of Avarice. So Target 3 Magical Musketeer cards in your graveyard, shuffle all 3 into the deck, then draw a card. So it's kind of, we just play the one of, and they are level 4, so that we can, you know, make 4 and things like that. And now, surprisingly with this deck, it's not very hand trap heavy. There's only somewhat 6 hand traps you play in this deck, which I play triple Phantasme. Yeah, this card's really good because I usually go blind second with this deck. So if you have this, you can at least fix your hand sometimes. Because sometimes you do get too many magical musket monsters in your hand, and you can't really do much with that. So you need just that good mix. Phantasme can just help you with that, especially because you can put back whatever, and it +1s when whatever you draw. So even if they just have one linking monster out, just drawing 2 and putting back 1 is already good enough. But yeah, that's why I play triple Phantasme, because if you're gonna be blinding second, I think Phantasme is a really good card for this. So that way you can dig for whatever you need. And then for the next card, for spells, I play triple cross domination. This is kind of like your effect negation, and it's a quick play too. So even if sometimes, like let's say, you know, if you anticipate maybe they'll try to get rid of your monster, you can always still set it. You do have, for all these cards, you do have to control a magical musket monster. But let's say, like, you know, you're able to get another monster out. Sometimes I do like setting them just because of, like I said, certain interactions. But yeah, cross domination is just a good card because it makes their attack 0. So a lot of the magical musket monsters aren't too strong. So this helps out just to get over certain monsters, and if need be, you need to negate an effect. Cross domination is there for that as well. And then just the one of magical musket steady hands. This is just if you need to get over something. It doesn't affect. Maybe if like your opponent's playing something that can't be affected. Excuse me. You can use this to double your own monster attack. You can get over it. And now for generic spells, like I was mentioning, I do play double Pot of Desires. There are those times where you don't want to use it, but like let's say if you do need to dig into your deck a lot faster, Pot of Desires is there. Obviously banishing 10 can hurt sometimes, but there are those times where you do draw 2 cards you need. And yeah, so Pot of Desires, if you don't want to play, you don't have to, but you kind of do with this deck just because you want to dig as much as you can. And now for another annoying card we play double Super Polymerization. Kind of does suck that the magical muskets are light, so you don't really use your own monsters. But let's say whatever you're playing against, we have an extra deck. Usually it's what your opponent's playing against, so that way you can use their monsters instead of your own monsters. So that's why I play Super Poly, just in case if your own magical musket monsters and/or spells and traps can't get over that. And then for generic removal, I'll play double Cosmic Cyclone. You do lose 1,000 life points, but this is just so you can get, like, let's say you have a Caspar out, you activate this underneath it, and that way you still get their effects off. And just especially if you need to get rid of something on their side of the field. So that's why I just play double. One upstart, I mean, yeah, you do give your opponents 1,000 life points, but just drawing a card for free is cool, so that's why I just play the one. And then now for the traps, we play double Desperado. With this one, if you control a magical musket monster, target a face-up card your opponent controls, destroy. You can only activate 1 per turn, but let's say, you know, whenever you can get rid of that 1 card they have. So that's why I play triple. It's a really good card. And then for our next magical musket trap, play triple Last Stand. I do see a lot of profiles playing only 2, but since I don't play any judgments or anything like that, I play triple this because this is my 1 judgment, I guess. So I mean, it can be responded to, but that's okay, just as long as you get rid of it. So yeah, it's just our 1, you know, archetype specific negate. And then for one-ups, I do play 1 Phoenix Deal and 1 Dancing Needle. So Phoenix Deal, if it's sent to the graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can add a magical musket card. So it's another way to get cards from deck or graveyard. So if, let's say, you run out of target or something in the deck, you can at least grab it from the graveyard. Then Dancing Needle is just kind of more like a DD Crow effect. You can banish up to 3 cards in either player graveyard. So if you have to. And the good thing is it's up to, so it doesn't have to be 3, so that way it doesn't fizzle. But yeah, Dancing Needle is a really good card. Sometimes you even might, depending what you're playing against, you might even want to bump it up to 2. And then for the next trap, Obviously, like I said, we're going second, so you're playing triple impermanence. If you have this in your opening hands, great. And even afterwards, if you don't, you could always put this underneath your Magical Musket monster, and you get effects off that way as well. So impermanence is really good. And obviously, if you don't have access to impermanence, you could always play other, like maybe cheaper hand traps, like DD Crow itself, Effect Veiler, Ash, Ghost Ogre, whatever one of those hand traps you prefer. And then for the last trap, play Double Storm Mirror Force. Like I said, there are those times where even if they get through all your, they survive all your spells and traps and things like that, you still have a battle trap that maybe they won't expect, and that we can get clear all their monsters as long as they don't have something to negate it. So that's why you still play it, because even if you do negate, like I said, you do negate with like impermanence, or you get rid of stuff with Desperado and like Last Stand, there are times where your opponent can still, get through that, especially with the decks nowadays. And now, onto the extra deck. So obviously for this deck, you gotta play triple max. This card's broken. You just need one non-link, one level 8 or lower Magical Musket monster, so that's any Magical Musket monster. This card actually kind of reminds me of the Trap Chick Sarah, where it's just like that one card that helps them out, and it's just really easy to make for them. And yeah, it just replaces itself. So obviously, if your opponent, when it's linked summon, you have to activate one of these effects. Add Magical Musket spell and traps depending on how many monsters they control, or you can special summon Magical Musket monsters from your deck depending on how many spells and traps they control. And it doesn't restrict you to only summoning Magical Muskets or anything like that. So let's say they do have a lot of back row and you're able to get Max's effect off, you can go into some pretty big link plays if need be. And now on to generic links. We play one IP Masquerena, just because sometimes you need to make, there's only 2 link 4s I play in the extra deck. So yeah, she's just really good, especially if you can get that max play off, or with the Magical Musket max off. You can go into her and like another link 2, and you can get like an, kind of almost indestructible link 4 monster. For generics, you play one Phoenix and one Cerberus, just in case you need to pop stuff. In case you can't do it with your Magical Musket cards themselves, you can use Phoenix and Cerberus to get rid of problematic cards. And then for the Link Force, I play one Bulbasaur Dragon, and then one Topologic Zeraboros. Obviously now with the Zeraboros having its new errata, now that it's not during your next turn, but during the next turn that you use its effect, it can come back. And then obviously since we play Pod Desires, you can play this and you get extra attack. So that's why we play the Zeraboros. And now for some super poly targets, I do play Predaplan, Dragostopalia. They're playing some kind of fusion based deck like Shadow or something. You can use this. Obviously starting Venom Fusion Dragon, because a lot of monsters are dark. Sucks that your monsters aren't dark really with the Magical Musket monsters, but maybe your opponent is playing against it. And then Earth Golem at Ignister. So the only reason why I play this is, let's say you do have Max out there and they summon some kind of like, like an Avermax, something that's hard to get over. You could always use the Earth Golem just to get over it, especially if they do the IP Masquerena into Avermax. This can get rid of it with the Super Poly. So yeah, that's why we play it in the extra deck. And then now for Exceeds, just one card I'm trying now, just because all the Magical Muskets are fiends. I do play the one Darius. He's there just because if you need to get over something, he can do that. You still take damage, but if you just want to get rid of a monster, you can use this. And like I said, they're all fiends, so that's why we play it. Obviously, there's other rank 3s you can use. You can use Break Sword instead if you like, or Dante even if you like. But maybe you don't want to mill too much with Dante, but Dante is a 2500 beater, so if you use the effect. So that's another suggestion if you like. And then for rank 4s, play one Dugaris. Like I said, there are those times where you don't really care about your draw phase. Usually I would think you would use the draw phase effect more, but let's say if you do want to game your opponent, you do have that as well, especially if you have like one of your super poly targets out there like Venom Fusion Dragon or Dragostopalia, to get over monsters. But usually Dugaris, I like to use it for his draw effect, And like I say, you search so much sometimes in the deck that you don't really care about your draw. So that's why Gyarados is in there. 1 Emerald, just to shuffle some monsters. Sometimes you do cycle through monsters a lot, especially if you're linking a lot. Obviously, we don't have too many links in the extra deck, but like let's say if you're using like for Max and things like that, you can put your Maxes back. So that's why I play the Emerald. And for the last rank 4, we play 1 Bagooska, just in case if you're in a bind and you need to stall. Bagooska is there to help you out. But that's it for the deck profile, you guys. Let me know what you think about this Magical Musket deck profile. Like I said, with Magical Musket, it's actually kind of, you know, a little bit toolboxy. You can put your own kind of cards in there. You can splash it into other decks as well, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, just comment down below what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you click on the notification bell. Check our TCG Player affiliate link for any cards you might need if you want to build this deck or any other deck we featured on the profile. Or on the channel, I mean. Not on the profile, but on the channel. And yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good one.